Thank you, Senator Mulholland. We'll now move to question time. So, Senator Farrell.
Thank you, President. I seek leave to make a statement concerning ministerial arrangements for question time.
Is leave granted? Leave is granted, Minister Farrell.
I advise changes to ministerial arrangements. Senator Wong will be absent from question time today on account of ministerial business overseas. In the absence of Senator Wong, I will be the acting leader of the government in the Senate, and ministers will represent portfolios at question time in accordance with the letter circulated to the President and party leaders and independent senators.
Thank you, Minister Farrell. Senator Cash.
Thank you. And in that regard, then, my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Farrell. Yesterday, the Prime Minister told the Parliament that reports ISIS brides were being repatriated to Australia were not accurate. Yet last night we learned that the Acting Chief of the New South Wales Police Force said that his state force is working with federal counterparts to finalise operations relating to the return of Islamic State operatives. There is a strong concern in the Australian community about these individuals returning to Australia, given they willingly joined the ISIS death cult, a terrorist group who committed genocide against Shia, Yazidis and Christians and used rape as a weapon of war. Given the Prime Minister's sty-sipping yesterday, will the Minister be clear and honest with the Australian people and confirm whether individuals associated or formerly associated with ISIS are returning to Australia or have returned to Australia in recent months, yes or no?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Cash for her first question. The Minister, as you said, the Prime Minister has addressed this issue, and of course the Foreign Minister yesterday did address the issue extensively in terms of a response to the issues that have been raised regarding the so-called ISIS brides. The situation in Syria is becoming increasingly unstable. Our security agencies have been and continue to monitor the situation to ensure that they are prepared for any Australian from this cohort to return home. But as the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister has said, and let us be very clear about this, the Australian government is not providing assistance and is not repatriating individuals in Syrian IDP camps.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cash, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. In a statement in this chamber earlier today, Senator Gallagher confirmed security agencies have been and continue to monitor a cohort of Australians in Syria. As we know, the cohort referred to are the ISIS death cult associates. Minister, can the government confirm if any of that cohort has already returned to Australia?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Cash for her first supplementary question. I thought Senator Gallagher was very clear in what she had said about this situation. Can I repeat? Our security agencies have been and continue to monitor the situation to ensure that they are prepared for any Australian from this cohort to return home. And can I reiterate what I said in my earlier answer? The Australian government is not providing assistance and will not be repatriating individuals in Syrian IDP camps.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cash, second supplementary.
Can the government therefore guarantee that no taxpayers' funds at all will be spent on the return to Australia of ISIS associates, including on their travel costs?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Cash, for her second supplementary question. I can confirm and be very clear on this. The Australian government is not providing assistance and is not repatriating individuals in Syrian IDP camps.
Thank you, Minister. Senator De Vita.
Thanks, President. And my question is to the Minister for Finance and Government Services, Senator Gallagher. The former coalition government's Robodebt program illegally pursued Australians for debts that they didn't owe. The chapter was the worst failure of public administration in Australia's history. The Royal Commission into Robodebt made clear the devastating impact this scheme had on individuals and their families after the former coalition government hunted them down for money that they didn't owe. Could the minister update the Senate on the settlement outcome that has been reached with the victims of Robodebt today?
Thank you, Senator De Leger. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator De Leger for the question, and I also acknowledge the role that your union and mine played in advocating against the Robodebt scheme and raising concerns around Robodebt, and particularly on the impact it had on your constituents in Tasmania, Senator De Leger. Now, we all remember, and of course we will never forget, the failed program, Robodebt, known as Robodebt, that those opposite, when they were in government, established to hunt down, I think that was the language used by ministers, to hunt down people that owed money and have them pay it back to the Australian government. Of course, the major problem with that was that for the 450,000 that were affected by Robodebt, the majority of them didn't owe any money, and their government had raised debts they never owed and then pursued them and used language like, "We will hunt you down and jail you," for debts that they never owned. And not only were they pursuing debts that people didn't owe and demonising some of the poorest and most vulnerable Australians in the language and the way they prosecuted that, they were also using Robodebt as a budget savings measure. So it was to repair their budget, and they made a lot of promises about that. And we see the end result of this, not only the people that lost their lives, the families traumatised, the individuals who will never, ever get over the biggest failure of public administration in this country that those opposite presided over, but we have now know that the ongoing harm that has happened to those people affected by Robodebt, and we have sought to settle this legal matter. So the decision taken demonstrates our commitment to address the harms caused by Robodebt. Well, if Senator Canavan, I will give you leave to stand here and explain why you think the victims of Robodebt should be ridiculed.
Thank you, Minister. Order. Order. Senator De Leger, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. How has the Albanese Labor government continued to clean up the mess left behind by the coalition's unlawful and disastrous Robodebt program? What has the Robodebt scheme cost Australian taxpayers to date?
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Senator De Leger. Minister.
Thank you, Senator Leger, for the supplementary. The settlement we have reached, which is subject to court approval, will make $475 million available to compensate those affected by the unlawful Robodebt scheme. But in addition to that, when we look at the total cost, the coalition, when in government and using this scheme to balance their budget, told taxpayers it would save them $4.7 billion. But in the end, it cost over $500 million, not counting the money refunded. To break this down, the scheme was budgeted to save $4.7 billion. It only delivered a saving of $406 million, if you'd like to call it that, and it cost $971 million to implement. So that gives you a bit of an idea of the failed budget strategy, in addition to the huge and devastating human cost. The Commonwealth agreed to a $1.8 billion settlement over the illegal scheme, covering the repayments of debts totalling $1.76 billion and the initial class action of $112 million.
Thank you, Minister. Senator De Leger, second supplementary.
Thanks for that, Minister. Why is it so important to have a well-resourced and capable public service to ensure that this terrible chapter that was Robodebt never happens again?
Thank you, Senator De Leger. Minister.
Thank you very much, and I thank Senator De Leger for the question. Well, the total costs of the Robodebt scheme have now impacted the budget to the order of $2.9 billion. This includes the legal settlement costs and including that is subject to court approval. But I note those opposite went to the last election wanting to slash the public service. It shows they haven't learnt the lesson. They haven't learnt the lesson of Robodebt, which is reduce capability of the public service, diminish them, so that they are not able to provide frank and fearless advice. They're not able to respond to bad policy coming out of executive government. That is the approach that those opposite took to the last election. They were against a well-resourced, independent and functioning public service, because we know what they did when they were last in government, and we've got a great example of Robodebt, of the cost of the approach that they took.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Scarr.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Senator Watt. It appears that multiple federal and state government agencies are working on operations relating to the return to Australia of a cohort of Islamic State associates. The Acting Chief of the New South Wales Police Force has made clear his state force is working with federal counterparts to finalise operations in relation to the return of Islamic State associates. Is any government department involved in the issuing of birth certificates or travel documents to children born overseas to parents who are Australian citizens and are associates of ISIS? And can the Minister advise any other government agencies who are working with state counterparts to finalise operations relating to return of these individuals?
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Scarr, for the question. This is obviously an issue the opposition have concentrated a lot of time on in question time over the last couple of days. As Senator Farrell has already stated, the situation in Syria is becoming increasingly unstable. Our security agencies have been and continue to monitor the situation to ensure they are prepared for any Australian from this cohort returning home. And again, I can repeat what Senator Farrell has said, which is the Australian government is not providing assistance and is not repatriating individuals in Syrian IDP camps. Now, more broadly, our government is one that always acts in line with security advice. We'll continue to do that, whether it be in relation to this situation or any other.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Scarr, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. I'll be very particular, Minister. Is any government department issuing any birth certificates or travel documents to any children born overseas to parents who are Australian citizens and ISIS associates in preparation or in assistance to or in any way in connection with the return of those persons to Australia?
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Well, again, the information I have to hand is that the Australian government is not providing assistance and is not repatriating individuals in Syrian IDP camps.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Scarr.
Well, again, I'll ask the particular—
I think the minister's finished answering.
Oh.
Have you finished answering, Minister? Yeah, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Again, I'll ask the particular question. Is any government department issuing travel documents or birth certificates to children born overseas to parents who are Australian citizens and are ISIS associates? Is the government issuing any of these documents?
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President. I refer Senator Scarr to my previous answers.
Thank you. Senator Barbara Pocock. Order. We have now moved on. I have Senator Barbara Pocock on her feet. Order. Order. Senator Pocock.
My question is to the Minister for Finance, Senator Gallagher. Thousands of Australians have shared the Senate's outrage at the behaviour of PwC over recent years. This is a firm that used confidential government information to help some of the world's biggest multinationals avoid tax, a consultancy firm that reaped at least $2.5 million fees in doing so. Since the discovery of this debacle, PwC has been out of government consulting for just 16 months. But on 15th of July, the Department of Finance greenlighted PwC back into government work, despite the fact that there are investigations underway by the AFP and others. You've made no comment on Finance's decision to greenlight PwC. Minister, do you support the greenlighting of PwC back into government contracting, yes or no?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Pocock for the question and for her ongoing interest in the area of the use of consultants and contractors, alongside the very important work that Senator O'Neill has been doing throughout the last term in this area. And this, of course, the issues around PwC were extremely concerning to the government, and we made comments at the time. And as you say, there are a number of ongoing investigations, so I don't want to get into those. Ultimately, this matter, and it is appropriate that ministers are not involved in procurement decisions. I get a lot of, it's a big part of my role as finance. I get a lot of feedback about how people would like ministers to get more involved in procurement. I think there are very good reasons why we don't. My job is to make sure that there is the process around who procures with government, how people can engage with government to win contracts, that those arrangements are proper and appropriate. But the decisions about who is eligible to procure from government are matters quite rightly left to the public service, whether that be the Department of Finance through the work they do essentially is coordinating the procurement guidance across the public service. So that answers your question about that. It is a matter for the department. I think I've had a number of briefings with the department on their decision. As you'll know, it was a voluntary agreement that was reached for PwC not to procure from or not to seek contracts from government for a period of time, as Finance undertook some detailed work and sought commitments and assurances from them. That work has been completed, and the advice to me from Finance was that PwC, with all the assurance and undertakings that they'd given, it was appropriate to allow them to bid for work. That does not necessarily mean they will get work.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Pocock, first supplementary.
I don't hear an answer to my question in relation to PwC from your point of view as a minister. Under current laws, unlike 20 other countries around the world that actually do regulate these issues, the government can't ban a delinquent, unethical firm like PwC. Incredibly, at present, it relies on the wrongdoer to agree to ban itself from government contracts. That's like asking a criminal to agree to go to jail. What a joke. Do you support the Greens bill introduced today to legislate banning unethical, dodgy contractors like PwC from government work, so you've actually got the power to do
Senator
what
Pocock.
you should do?
The time for asking your question has expired. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much. Well, following the PwC matter being raised and the issues about it being raised, the Department of Finance has done a huge amount of work to improve those arrangements, and so there are, through the signing on to the Supplier Code of Conduct now that didn't exist before prior to PwC. This sets out clear behavioural expectations and places a positive duty on suppliers to take proactive action to discourage breaches of the code. Also, the notification of significant events clauses in standard Commonwealth contracts were put in place from May 2023. This again provides a positive obligations for suppliers to notify the Commonwealth of significant events, including adverse events or adverse comments or findings by legal or professional bodies. So I would say we have significantly strengthened the government's ability to deal with these matters when they arise in a much stronger way than existed before PwC.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Pocock, second supplementary.
Minister, Labor went to the election promising to cut government consultancy spending. Since then, you have been boasting about savings on consulting contracts, yet the government's very own data shows that in 2024-25, Labor in fact spent more than the last year of the Morrison government on consultants. Labor's excessive outsourcing of public sector work to the private sector isn't just wasting taxpayers' money. As you said to an earlier answer today, it's eroding Australia's public service.
Thank you, Senator Pocock. The time for asking your question
Why have you broken
expired.
your promise?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, we haven't. And indeed, we've taken $5.3 billion in savings from departments in relation to external labour and non-wage expenses in our first term. We've taken a policy to the last term, the last election, of $6.4 billion in savings. We have seen a dramatic decrease in the use of the big four consultants that were that we had compared to what we'd seen under the former government. And we have rebuilt the public service, and we've rebuilt it with permanent public servants doing ongoing public service work. We have done a range of other things to make it clear to departments about when we think using consultants or outsourcing or using external labour is appropriate. But I totally reject any view that we haven't invested in the public service. We have. and we will continue to do so, and we will deliver the $6.4 billion in savings that we talked to the last campaign over the use of consultants.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Ananda Raja.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Ageing, Senator McAllister. In its first term, the Albanese Labor government delivered cost-of-living relief that was focused on ensuring Australians, no matter where they came from or where they live, could access affordable health care. How is the government building on its first-term record to strengthen Medicare and deliver cost-of-living relief to all Australians?
Thank you, Senator Ananda Raja. Minister McAllister.
Thanks, President, and I thank the Senator and acknowledge her commitment to Medicare and to public health. Well, in our first term, the Albanese Labor government delivered $3.5 billion in 2023, which restored access to bulk billing for the 11 million patients that it covered. And we promised 50 urgent care clinics that would deliver bulk billed care for urgent and non-life-threatening conditions. We promised 50, but how many did we deliver? We actually delivered 87. That's right, colleagues. How many? And it was 87. 87, Senator Ciccone. We delivered the largest cut to the cost of medicines in the history of the PBS, with the maximum cost of a script falling from $42.50 to just $30. And we did this because it is the Labor way. We did this because no one should have to check their bank balance to see if they can afford to go to the doctor, and because health care should be accessible to everybody, no matter how much you make and no matter where you live. And we are building on those foundations. From the 1st of November 2025, Labor will deliver the largest ever investment in the history of Medicare, $8.5 billion, to expand bulk billing and create an additional new incentive payment for practices that bulk bill every payment. We will also expand the availability of free urgent health care by opening another 50 Medicare urgent care clinics. And just this week, of course, the government passed our cheaper medicines bill so that a prescription on the pharmaceutical benefits scheme costs no more than $25. This is a 20% cut in the maximum cost of medicines under the PBS. Now, make no mistakes, colleagues, the Albanese government is building on the foundations that we laid in our first term. We are restoring and strengthening Medicare, which is something that those opposite were unwilling and unable to do in their 3 terms.
Has expired. Senator Ananda Raja, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. The PBS is a proud cornerstone of Australia's universal health care system, because Australians should never have to choose between the medicines they need and paying their bills. How has the Albanese Labor government delivered cost-of-living relief by making medicines cheaper for all Australians?
Thank you, Senator Ananda Raja. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President. The Albanese Labor government is delivering even cheaper medicines in our second term. We have successfully passed legislation this week to make sure that a prescription on the pharmaceutical benefit scheme costs no more than $25. Now, as I said in my answer to your primary question, this is a 20% cut in the maximum cost of medicines under the PBS. It will save Australians more than $200 million a year. And pensioners and concession card holders, of course, will have the cost of their PBS medicines frozen at just $7.70 until 2030. You would have to go all the way back to 2004 for medicines this cheap. No one should have to choose between the medicines they need and putting food on the table. And that is why the Albanese government has consistently delivered on our plan to make medicines cheaper, because we know that that's what real cost of living looks like.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ananda Raja, second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. In May, Australians voted to protect and strengthen Medicare. How is the Albanese Labor government focused on delivering the better future Australians voted for? Why has the government chosen this approach?
Thank you, Senator Ananda Raja. Minister McAllister.
Thank you, President. Well, we're very clear about our approach on this side of the chamber, Senator Ananda Raja, because when we came to government in 2022, there was a lot of damage to be repaired, damage caused by those opposite. We're repairing it with more bulk billing, with cheaper medicines and with more urgent care clinics. Now, everyone here remembers their approach. They promised no cuts to health. Then what did they do? They cut $428 million from health in the 2014 budget. And everyone remembers what Senator Ruston said at the time. She said this: everybody would like to think we could go on in life with universal health care, with universal education and with all these wonderful things that over the last 20 years Australians have come to accept as a given. Unfortunately, the credit card is maxed out. That was the position that they took. Well, their 6-year freeze on the Medicare rebate ripped billions out of Medicare. We are repairing that damage, strengthening Medicare with more bulk billing, cheaper medicines and more urgent care.
Minister McAllister. Senator Thorpe.
Thank you. My question is for the Minister for Indigenous Australians. Minister, after the August meeting of the Standing Council of Attorneys General, the government's little gammon skag, more like Standing Council for Aboriginal Genocide, which you attended, the Northern Territory and Queensland governments publicly rejected their Closing the Gap commitments, while other states are clearly not complying. With all the powers available to you as a federal minister to change this, what is your plan now when it is clear that letters, meetings and strongly urging do not work?
Thank you, Senator Thorpe. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. I'd just like to put on the record that I didn't attend a Standing Council on Aboriginal Genocide. I think that's the first thing I'd like to just put on the record to the Senate. And yes, it was an incredibly important meeting, a very difficult one, Senator Thorpe. Difficult because, as I've said in the Senate here, there are 2 jurisdictions in particular that have come into government with the view that getting tough on crime means incarcerating everyone. And that means the Northern Territory and Queensland. So by addressing all of the AGs all together in the room was incredibly important for myself, but also for the Coalition of Peaks, who at the Joint Council in June-July, had asked for that to happen. It's not going to change straight away, Senator Thorpe, but I can commit to this Senate I will keep going on it.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Thorpe, first supplementary.
Thank you. The NT has the 2nd highest incarceration rate in the world and is 90% First Peoples. While police can kill us and walk free, you have the power to overturn any law in the Northern Territory, as the federal government has done before. Will you commit to using your federal powers now to stand up for our people against the racist CLP government?
Senator Thorpe, you can't make aspersions against federal or state or territory government, so I'm going to ask you to withdraw that last comment.
Why can't I criticise a racist government, President, with all due respect?
Senator Thorpe, I've had numerous discussions with you.
They're clearly racist.
You're not in a debate with me. I've asked you to withdraw, and that is what I want you to do. Simply withdraw your last statement.
I'm stating a fact. The coroner said that
Senator Thorpe, you will cease to be heard if you don't withdraw.
Lenny, I withdraw.
Thank you. Minister McCarthy.
Question was, Senator Thorpe, you are correct in terms of the Australian Parliament's role with the Northern Territory. It is a legislative assembly. It, like the ACT, can be intervened on, and we've seen that with the 2007 intervention into the Northern Territory. And you're right, there is a power there within the Self-Governing Act and beyond. But what I've said on the public record is that we have to be responsible about what our response is to them. I'm very conscious of the powers we have, but just because we have great power does not mean we should use it unwisely. So yes, I'm looking at every option to answer your question.
Senator Thorpe, second. Beg your pardon, Senator Duniam.
President, I was just on a point of order. I'm reluctant to do it, but Senator Thorpe's top. You've previously ruled that if a senator is wearing a top with a slogan on it, that you would invite them to put a jacket over it or something like that. I noticed you did so on the 16th of June 2023 to Senator Thorpe. You might invite her to do the same this time.
Senator Thorpe has addressed the issue herself, but I will come back to the chamber and make a statement on this, because slogans are what you can read or see that are recognised as offensive. Senator Thorpe was wearing two flags which hang in this chamber. I couldn't see the slogan. Perhaps I need my eyes checked, but thank you for taking it off, Senator Thorpe, and I invite you to ask your second supplementary.
Thank you, and I'm sure the Seed Mob President will afford you a T-shirt of your own. Minister, First Nations kids are being tortured in prisons right now using spit hoods or spit guards. You could use your powers to overturn dangerous laws and ban torture devices from being used on our kids. Is maintaining the illusion of cooperating with states and territories worth the continued abuse of Aboriginal children?
Thank you, Senator Thorpe. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. I thank the senator for a question. I certainly reject outright that we are privy to an abuse, Senator Thorpe, in terms of cooperation. Cooperation is essential in every circumstance where we can, obviously. I have met with the Chief Minister and expressed directly to her my concerns in regards to not only the youth who are being incarcerated and not only the spit guards and spit hoods there. So, well, this is to answer your question, Senator Thorpe. And the Northern Territory Government is on notice in regards to that, and I'm certainly going to keep this Senate informed as to what we are doing in those circumstances.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Kovacic.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Senator Watt. Has the government met with representatives from Save the Children to discuss the repatriation of ISIS associates and or their children?
Thank you, Senator Kovacic. Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Kovacic. As I've said, the Australian government is not providing assistance to the cohort that's been referred to in reports, and I've got nothing further to add to my previous answers.
Senator Kovacic. First supplementary. I'm very sorry, Senator Kovacic. It's extremely disrespectful of people on your own side to be yelling and talking over you whilst you were invited to make your first supplementary. So please continue.
Minister, has the government been briefed by Save the Children in relation to the repatriation of ISIS associates and or their children?
Thank you, Senator Kovacic. Minister Watt.
Well, again, these questions are all predicated on certain assumptions, and I repeat the point that the Australian government is not providing assistance to this cohort.
Thank you, Senator Watt. Senator Kovacic.
Minister, in your answer to Senator Scarr, you said the Australian government is not providing assistance and not repatriating individuals in Syrian IDF camps. I ask the question again. Is any government department issuing travel documents or birth certificates to children born overseas to a parent who are Australian citizens and are ISIS associates? Is the government issuing any of these documents?
Thank you, Senator Kovacic. Minister Watt.
Again, the Australian government is not providing assistance to this cohort.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Whitten.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Murray Watt. The government has denied any part in repatriating the ISIS brides. The Deputy Police Commissioner of New South Wales has told estimates that they are working with the Commonwealth on this very issue. Is the Deputy Police Commissioner mistaken, or has the government been in discussions with New South Wales Police over the repatriations of the ISIS brides?
Thank you, Senator Whitten. Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator. Obviously, the various comments have been made, and it's a matter for the New South Wales Police what they say, but the Australian government is not providing assistance to this cohort.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Whitten, first supplementary.
The government is pushing through legislation to send the NZYQ cohort to Nauru at a cost of $2.5 billion. Would the government consider sending the future ISIS brides to Nauru instead of allowing them back in the community after they've joined an explicit terrorist organisation?
Thank you, Senator Whitten. Minister Watt.
The Australian government is not providing assistance to this cohort.
Senator Whitten, second supplementary.
This doesn't pass the pub test. We've got the New South Wales Police discussing details of bringing these ISIS brides home, and the government sits there saying nothing to see here. It doesn't add up. What happened to the government of transparency? You better tell the New South Wales Police they've got the wrong end of the stick, or the government needs to come clean. How much is this going to cost, and when are they coming in, and where are you going to put them? Don't you think Australians deserve answers now?
Thank you, Senator Whitten. Minister Watt.
Well, I'm not going to comment on comments made by the New South Wales Police, but the Australian government is not providing assistance to this cohort.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ghosh.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs and Minister for Immigration and Citizenship, Minister Watt. Australia is a modern nation that has benefited from our embrace of multiculturalism, and you only need to look around this new parliament to see that. Overwhelmingly, people of different ethnicities, different religions and different backgrounds live in harmony. Can the Minister explain how a balanced migration policy benefits our great nation?
Thank you, Senator Ghosh. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Ghosh, for your question. I think it's an important one. Australia doesn't have a race-based migration system, and nor should we. We dealt with that as a nation 60 years ago. Over the years, Australia has become a great multicultural nation, a place that is world-renowned for its welcoming and accepting attitude towards people from all corners of the globe. We're a modern nation that has benefited from our multiculturalism. Over the decades, migrants to Australia have made incredibly important economic contributions to our country, like the vital trade ties developed with the world and the skills and investment they have brought to our shores. But there are also the benefits you can't measure on a Treasury graph. The cultural impact of living alongside people from different backgrounds, of experiencing different perspectives through welcoming new people to Australia cannot be understated. Of course, a growing population needs homes and infrastructure to cope, and that's why the Albanese government has invested so heavily in the housing and infrastructure needed by those living in and moving to Australia. And those efforts to build more homes and infrastructure have been opposed every time by a coalition that did nothing to increase housing supply during their wasted decade in office and now seeks to blame migrants for housing pressures in Australia. The coalition have spent this week dog whistling and foghorn blowing to stoke division in our community on migration. The so-called Liberal Party is so busy looking for someone to blame, they've forgotten that half of all Australians were born overseas or have parents born overseas. Australians know we are strongest as a nation when we stand together, not look for reasons to build walls between each other. And the Albanese government and Labor will always strengthen the unity that makes Australia the best country in the world.
Order! Order! Senator McKim, your almost running commentary throughout the minister's entire answer was incredibly disrespectful. Senator Ghosh, first supplementary.
On the weekend, we saw some of the worst elements of our society fanning anti-immigration sentiment across the country, and this was the latest in a growing trend of fringe groups trying to divide Australians. Can the minister outline what the government is doing to ensure social cohesion is maintained within our society?
Order! Order! Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Ghosh. The public displays of hate, the violence and the trumpeting of division that we saw on the weekend are not the values Australians hold dear. As public office holders, we have an important role to play in promoting social cohesion, but the Coalition are once again trying to divide us for their political gain. Just like they've always done, when they run out of solutions, they run toward division, dancing to the tune of Senator Hanson and One Nation rather than backing a strong, unified, modern Australia. And all week we've seen coalition senators falling over themselves to get into the media and blame migrants for housing shortages the coalition oversaw. And of course it led to yesterday's interview on the ABC by Senator Nampa Price, someone the Liberals were so desperate to poach from the Nationals, who made a terrible smear on the Indian Australian community. That community makes a huge contribution to our country, and it's one that our side of parliament is incredibly proud of. Senator Nampa Price and the Leader of the Opposition should apologise for these offensive remarks.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Ghosh, second supplement. Senator Nampa Price, come to order. Senator Watt, come to order. 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 Senator Ghosh, second supplementary.
Since those protests, there has been a lot of commentary about migration policies and how they interact with other policies in government, like housing. Can the minister explain how the government's policies are helping all Australians and if there is broad support for our approach?
Thank you, Senator Ghosh. Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Ghosh. The Albanese government is investing in housing, infrastructure and social services while ensuring we also have a migration system that balances our need for skilled workers with having a sustainable population. Now, this used to be a bipartisan position in Australia, but it's disappointing to now see the Liberal Party fanning the flames on an issue that should be well and truly behind us. I know there are some opposite who know the approach being taken by the Liberal Party is wrong. We've seen Senator Bragg tell the ABC that, quote, "It's important we don't beat up on migrants. It's not a good idea to say the housing crisis is all because of migration." And we see other coalition senators, and I'm looking at a few right now, trying to ingratiate themselves with multicultural communities in their hometowns. But then this week they came to Canberra and joined One Nation to oppose motions that reject racism, white supremacy and condemnation of immigrants. Australia's social cohesion is precious and it is fragile, and I urge the coalition to think very hard before they continue at scratching at their anti-immigration itch.
Thank you, Minister Watt. Senator Mackenzie.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Senator Watt. The ISIS associates' children cannot enter Australia without the relevant documents, including birth certificates. Will the Albanese government assist them in entering Australia by issuing those documents?
Order. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President. Thanks, Senator Mackenzie. Again, your question is predicated on certain assumptions, and the government is not providing assistance to this cohort.
Senator Mackenzie, first supplementary.
Why did you refuse to say the government has not met with Save the Children in relation to the return of the ISIS associated cohort? Why did you say the government hadn't met with Save the Children?
Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. Minister Watt.
Well, surprisingly, I think Senator Mackenzie is misrepresenting what I told the Senate. The Australian government is not providing assistance to this cohort.
Thank you. Thank you. When you finish, Senator Cash, I'll invite Senator Mackenzie to put her second supplementary. Well, the minister's finished, so I'm going to invite you to put your second supplementary.
Madam President, I was rising for a point of order, but the minister answered the question in record time. The point of order being— No,
Senator Mackenzie, it's finished. I've invited you to ask your second supplementary about 3 times. Do you have a second supplementary, or shall I move on? Okay.
Why did you say you hadn't been briefed? But why did the minister say he hadn't been briefed by Save the Children on the return of the ISIS-associated cohort? And if he can't answer it or doesn't know whether the relevant minister or their agencies have met and been briefed by Save the Children, will he do the Senate the courtesy of taking it on notice?
Order. Order on my right. Order. Order. Senator Ayres, order. Senator Shoebridge, I shouldn't have to call individual senators. I've called order a number of times. Minister Watt.
Again, Senator Mackenzie is misrepresenting what I've said to the Senate, and she really should stop doing so. If she stops misrepresenting what I say, she'll get other answers.
Senator Grogan.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Ayres. Addressing climate change is a key priority of the Albanese Labor government. We have campaigned on our climate targets, and they've been endorsed by the electorate twice. In achieving these targets while delivering low-cost energy for Australian households and businesses requires major renewable and transmission investment. What progress has the government made on delivering renewables and transition projects?
Senator Ayres.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Grogan. I think it's a good opportunity to point out to the chamber that there's representatives for Youth for Climate Justice here in the chamber with us, and they've been talking to senators and to members, and young people.
Minister Ayres, please resume your seat. Order. Minister Gallagher.
Senator McKim's interjections are disorderly, President, and he wasn't responding to you drawing him to your ruling, so I'm doing it on his behalf.
Senator McKim, I have asked you earlier in question time to come to order. You were yelling more loudly than the minister, who was mic'd up, and you were not. This is not a football crowd. It's Senate question time. Minister Watt, please continue.
It is, I'd have to say, pretty graceless too,
Senator Ayres.
when there's young people having a go, coming to the parliament, expressing their view to members of parliament and senators and ministers, to be howling down an acknowledgement from the government that it is a good thing. Young people get it. Young people get it. Young people get the imperative about climate change and energy. They also understand the scale of the challenge that is in front of Australia after a decade of policy inaction and disinvestment and capital flight caused by those opposite when they were in government. We are setting about the task of building a new low-cost and clean energy electricity system. And in fact, there's all sorts of people who endorse this approach. It was endorsed, in fact, by the former leader of the government in the Senate and former Liberal Finance Minister, Secretary-General of the OECD, Matthias Cormann, who said just this week, "What is important for Australia, for countries around the world, is not to continue the debate about whether or not to pursue the net zero objective, but how to do it in the best possible way." Well, there you go. There you go. Over in the House of Representatives, it's the silly billies, Mr Joyce and all these other characters every Monday morning.
Senator Ayres, I cautioned you about the use of that term the other day and asked you to withdraw, so I'm going to ask you to withdraw again.
I'm trying really hard to use something that's good-natured and I will absolutely follow your injunction.
Well, that means you have to follow up with "I withdraw."
Oh, sorry, I withdraw.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And we're just going to see more of it. We're going to see it clearly here. Senator Canavan's up and about. Maybe we'll do that every week too. Maybe we'll do that every week too. Every day, maybe.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Grogan, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. I would also like to draw attention to the fact that we have another great champion of climate change and renewable energy, Anton van Bavel, up in the gallery. Building a new, low-cost, clean energy system.
Order. 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 Senator Grogan, please continue.
Can the minister tell us what progress has been made on delivering affordable energy since the government's first term in 2022?
Thank you, Senator. The time has expired. Minister Ayres.
We have made strong progress, Senator Grogan, and we're going to continue to make strong progress, even if you've got some of these characters opposite running around campaigning against electricity investment hundreds of kilometres from their home, a sort of social media memes imported from overseas, punching them out into regional communities. What have regional communities done to deserve the National Party? What have regional communities done to deserve the white-anting and undermining of their economic progress that the National Party has embarked upon? And when will the moderates in the Liberal Party actually stand up for sensible economic policy, sensible climate and energy policy, and get with the program and follow the lowest cost model of modern electricity instead of indulging in this sort of far-right ideological frolic?
Thank you, Senator Ayres. Senator Grogan, second supplementary.
Thank you, President, and thank you to the Minister for laying that out for us. I think it's important to remember what some of our colleagues on the other side are actually trying to achieve at this point in time and the difficulty they're having in agreeing on anything. The Albanese Labor government has prioritised clear and coherent energy policy. The goal is to give investors and international partners confidence that they can engage. What parts of the community would be affected if Australia keeps incoherent and frequently changing energy policies?
Answering has expired. Minister Ayres.
Well, it was a very good question, and the truth is that the parts of Australia that hurt most because of the extreme advocacy of Senators Canavan and the colleagues in the National Party and the extreme parts of the Liberal Party, the bits of the community that hurt most is regional Australia. That's where they're out, undermining jobs, undermining investment, undermining blue-collar work. And there are some over there who actually understand it. Senator McLaughlin knows this. He said, as a young lawyer practising in Port Augusta, I witnessed the consequences of economic disruption and the resulting social impacts. Rather than debating whether we should have targets, we should be debating how to best to bring our people with us and to assist them during the transition. That is at least remotely sensible. At least remotely sensible, and we'll look forward to more of Senator Canavan's net zero obsession.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Duniam.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister.
I'm sorry, Senator Duniam. Senator Canavan, I have called you. Your running commentary is disrespectful. Please continue, Senator Duniam.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Senator Watt. In a statement in this chamber earlier, largely repeated by you in this question time, Senator Gallagher confirmed security agencies have been and continue to monitor a cohort of Australians in Syria. As we know, the cohort is referred to as the ISIS death cult associates. Minister, can the government confirm whether any of the cohort is coming back to Australia?
Thank you, Senator Duniam. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Duniam. I can confirm the comments of Senator Gallagher earlier today to the effect that our security and intelligence agencies have been and continue to work to ensure they are prepared for any Australian from this cohort returning home. But I also repeat the point that I've made several times now, which is that the Australian government is not providing assistance to this cohort.
He's finished the question. Senator Duniam, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. I note there was no answer given in relation to the specific question. Senator Gallagher went on to say our agencies are aware of persons of interest in the cohort. Are any of the cohort subject to warrants issued by Australia relating to alleged offences during their time in the Middle East?
Thank you, Senator Duniam. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Duniam, for the supplementary. Again, I repeat the point that I've made several times today, which is that the Australian government is not providing assistance to this cohort. And I also—
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Senator Duniam.
President, on relevance, I was very specific about whether any warrants had been issued by Australia relating to alleged offences in the Middle East, not about assistance being provided.
Senator Watt, if I could draw you to the specifics of the question.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Duniam. Again, I can only repeat the advice that I've provided so far, which is that the Australian government is not providing assistance to this cohort.
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Senator Duniam.
President, on relevance again, the minister repeated exactly what he said before, which precipitated the first point of order, I would ask you to draw him to the specifics of the question around the warrants issued.
Certainly. Thank you, Senator Duniam. Minister Gallagher.
Point of order, President. You have made a number of times, or you made remarks a number of times saying that you cannot direct ministers how to answer a question. And I would remind you of that in the way that Minister Watt is being relevant. He is answering the question that's been asked, but he can't be directed how to answer it.
Senator, the minister continued with the same answer he had continued with on the first point of order, on which I drew him back to the question. You're absolutely right. I can't direct ministers to the question, but to answer the question in a specific way. But I can draw ministers, where appropriate, back to the question, and I remind Minister Watt of that. Just a moment, Senator Watt. Senator Henderson.
Madam President, thank you. Just on the point of order, I would just ask you to remind the minister that he must be directly relevant, not just relevant, directly relevant. Thank you.
Senator Henderson. If you're so keen on doing this job, put his name down as a temporary chair. I've responded to the question. I've drawn the minister back to the question, and it's not a point of order. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thank you to the various coalition senators as well for their guidance as to how I should answer the question. I was actually midway through my answer to the question from Senator Duniam, beginning by repeating the point that we are not providing assistance to the cohort. But I was also going to confirm again the comments that Senator Gallagher made earlier today, and this goes to part of Senator Duniam's question, that our security and intelligence agencies have been and continue to work to ensure that they are prepared for any Australian from this cohort returning home.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Duniam, second supplementary.
That again did not answer the question that was asked, but anyway, we'll try this. Senator Gallagher further said that agencies were prepared and will be able to act in the interests of community safety. What actions can the agencies take to keep Australians safe from the persons of interest in this cohort?
Thank you, Senator Duniam. Minister Watt.
Well, can I just begin, and I will come to the question directly in a moment, but again, it is correct that our security and intelligence agencies have been and continue to work to ensure they are prepared for any Australian from this cohort returning home. Now, Senator Duniam's question seeks information about the activities of our security agencies, and of course no Australian government would provide the kind of information that Senator Duniam is seeking as to the activities of our security agencies. Those sorts of activities are kept confidential for a reason. It's because they do go to national security matters, so we don't propose to elaborate on what those activities are, other than to say that our security intelligence agencies have been and continue to work to ensure they are prepared for any Australian from this cohort returning home.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Dowling.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. The Albanese Labor government worked hard over the first term to strengthen the economy, delivering back-to-back surpluses, slashing billions in debt and interest repayments, and bringing inflation to a 4-year low. This has seen the RBA given the room to cut rates 3 times in 6 months. Mortgage interest costs have fallen collectively by $800 million since the end of last year. With low unemployment and rising wages, the government is supporting Australians to earn more and keep more of what they earn. As we enter our second term, what is the government doing to further strengthen the economy and deliver for the Australian people?
Thank you, Senator Dowling. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Dowling for the question and for your interest in Australia's economy. I think it's the first question I've had all week, maybe all fortnight, on the performance of the Australian economy. So thank you for your interest, because it is an important area and a priority of the Albanese government. When it comes to our budget, we have delivered the biggest nominal budget turnaround in a parliamentary term on record. And at the same time, we've invested in responsible cost of living support. The opposition has no economic credibility. The Liberals went to the last election promising higher income tax, more savage cuts and bigger deficits over the forward estimates. Labor's election commitments were fully offset. They improved the UCB in every year and cumulatively by more than $1 billion compared to the 2025 pre-election fiscal outlook. 2022. We've delivered 2 surpluses and lower debt and deficits, placing downward pressure on inflation. We turned 2 Liberal deficits into 2 large Labor surpluses, the first back-to-back surpluses in almost 20 years. 2024-25 deficits almost half what we inherited and is better in every year over the forwards compared to the 2022 PFO. Debt is $177 billion lower in 2024-25, and no wonder they aren't interjecting, because this is their record. Their record. They broke the budget. They like to think of themselves as the party of good budgeting, but we know we've beaten them on every single measure. The government has demonstrated significant budget restraint. We've got the budget more than $207 billion better off than what we inherited. We've banked 70% of revenue upgrades coming to government. We've identified more than $100 billion in responsible savings and in reprioritising.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Dowling, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. The national accounts released yesterday showed that the economy grew in the June quarter, both as a whole and, importantly, on a per capita basis. These results, in fact, were better than just about all economists expected. So, Minister, what does the data tell us about the economy?
Great question. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Dowling for that question too. Well, as he says, the Australian economy grew in that quarter, 0.6% in the June quarter to be 1.8% higher through the year. This is the fastest annual growth rate in almost 2 years, and shows that our gathering momentum is positive news for all Australians. Last financial year, we achieved what no major advanced economy could: continuous economic growth, low unemployment and inflation below 2.5%. Australia is one of only 6 advanced economies that have grown every quarter for the last 3 years. 32 out of 38 OECD nations have gone backwards for at least 1 quarter in the last 3 years, but Australia is not one of them. We have the fastest annual growth when compared to other major advanced economies. Our employment growth has been much stronger than other countries, and that means more Australians in jobs, earning more and keeping more of what they earn.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Dowling, second supplementary.
Whether it's cheaper medicines, energy bill relief, cutting HECS debts and increased bulk billing, the Albanese Labor government continues to focus on cost of living relief for all Australians. Despite an improving economy, the government knows that cost of living stress weighs heavily on the lives of many Australians. How have the government's policies continued to support the economy?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Dowling for the supplementary. The Albanese government has had a laser-like focus on cost of living relief for Australians. I'm sorry Senator Bragg isn't here. Give my best to Senator Bragg, but we've had a laser-like focus on cost of living relief. At the election, the Australian people endorsed this approach. They rejected the slash-and-burn approach of the coalition. Not only did the coalition reject most of our cost of living measures at every opportunity, the numbers show that their economic record is abysmal. 0 surpluses that they delivered after promising them in every year. Almost $8 billion, how much bigger their deficits would have been had they won the election. We inherited $1 trillion of debt from the Liberals. Inflation had a 6 in front of it. It's now got a 2 in front of it. The numbers speak for themselves, President. These were an important set of numbers, and the Albanese government remain focused on ensuring that we help Australians with cost of living.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Farrell.
I move that further questions be put onto the notice.